We were monitoring the data of that store. Was it performing how we expected it to perform? And we're doing it in real time, fixing things in real time. We were using Hotjar at the time to view user sessions. We were using user surveys. We were talking to our customer services team about any feedback they got, talking to our international teams. So all that data was coming in, and it allowed us to very quickly and rapidly start to improve that site, because as you'd probably expect when you first roll out a site, you probably have a conversion dip before it upticks, and it allowed us a bit of time then for bedding in, look at the metrics and improve things as we're going along.
Welcome to the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives, a podcast by Noibu, where we explore the elite strategies and cutting-edge insights with our expert guests. Get ready to propel your e-commerce business to the next level.
Welcome to another episode of the Ecommerce Toolbox Expert's Perspective. Joining us today, all the way over from across the pond in the UK, we got John Cleaver. Welcome, John.
Hi, Kailin. How are you doing?
Great. Super excited to have you on today. Always like to start off with a bit about your background and professional background, but also maybe we see a lot of medals in the background. Love to hear a bit more about your running and your athletic background, but why don't we kick off with a brief introduction on your side and kind of going through both of those?
Yeah, sure. Because it's really relevant to how I ended up at sportshoes.com, but we'll come to that at the end. Since I was 19 years old, a long time ago, 1999, I've spent my time, majority of my career in retail. Then it was in computer retail, worked for Time Computers and Tiny Computers, and we were UK's largest retailer of computers back in the day. We had a mail order business, and it was really in the infancy of the internet. We were just early adopting that as a channel, mainly for marketing as opposed to sales. And that's where I cut my teeth in, and I got involved in software engineering. And although it wasn't official, I'd say that's where my apprenticeship began. Since then, worked for a used car hypermarket. We had 2,000 cars per site across 8 different sites. And I suppose that's what you call, before it became a thing, like omni-channel retailing, because we had the clienteling systems, the EPOS systems, we had the online website, we had a call center function, etc. And it was a great opportunity for me to get great exposure across multiple different business domains. And during my time there, over the period of 8 years, we evolved more into moving towards the internet and being able to actually sell a car on the internet. Now, when we began doing that in 2001, you'd have never thought that was a thing. Anyone would buy a used car over the internet. But lo and behold, towards the end of that, we really started to adopt that as a trend, and certainly were taking deposits and then appointing customers through the old system. So that was really interesting. So after that, I went into B2B. I did some work in legal services for a number of years, mainly in HR and employment law. And we built an app over there, HR platforms, built new revenue streams, really honed the commercial acumen about how we can make software and generate revenue. And following that, I got the opportunity to work for a business called Sofology, a large sofa retailer. That was true omnichannel. We sold sofas online, we sold them in store, we sold them over the phone. In that project there, we implemented SAP Hybris as our e-com platform. And it was all integrated. So we built point-of-sale platforms, bespoke point-of-sale platforms, bespoke website, etc. And then moving on from there, I went into the world of fast fashion. So that was selling joggers, women's dresses, that sort of thing. I suppose what's interesting about that is it was the first sort of foray into really understanding how scale matters in that business. It's very hype-driven, sale-driven, influencer-driven. So very much we had to focus on being able to scale what was then Magento 1.9 and be able to get that from its constraints of probably out the box delivering 10 orders per second if you're lucky, through to breaking it entirely apart so we could get like 250 orders per second and really scale that platform to the point where you could take probably, I don't know, in an hour, £250,000 worth of revenue without it breaking. That wasn't trivial. And alongside that, we delivered an app. And then I went to sneaker marketplace, sneakers, streetwear. That was really interesting. How you could scale that sort of business more on a commission basis. And then I got the call from sports shoes, and my hobby is very much as an amateur athlete, I would say. I'd like to think if I wasn't working in technology, I'd like to have been a full-time athlete, but unfortunately, that ship sailed. I've been fortunate enough to go around the world, doing all the world major marathons and really trying to get good at this thing. So yeah, I've enjoyed that. Sports shoes approached me while I was working in the marketplace, and it didn't take me long to think about it, to be honest, because very rarely do you get the opportunity to work for a business which aligns with both your passions, your hobbies, and what you do as a living. So I had to play a bit hardball with that because I wasn't that interested, but really I was obviously dying to join sportshoes.com, and it's nearly 3 years in now and I've not looked back, and I've enjoyed nearly every minute of it.
I love it. And obviously, like you mentioned, you have a diverse background in terms of different retailers and even different industries. During your career so far, how have you used the collection and analyzation of data to really inform your decisions?
I think over time you get better at doing this. I think I'll give you some more recent examples. So we've gone through over the last 18 months a big replatform where we've delivered a whole new website. And during that process, we had to really distill what the old website was doing. It was a big site, and understand what users were and were not using in order to filter down what was the initial MVP or requirements list. We looked at things like what payment methods were most used, what features were most used, and trying to analyze that user-centric data. That becomes even more important because obviously as you get into a project, you don't know what you don't know, and then time soon starts to disappear on you. So it allowed us to ruthlessly prioritize our backlog based upon the numbers that customers were actually transacting through. So payment methods, for argument's sake, we made sure that card payments are 70% of our business. That's the thing. There is no question about that. And then we might have PayPal second, then Klarna third, etc. And also looking at through a localized lens. So we looked at our sales data and we wanted to roll out our websites. We didn't want to bring in a huge amount of risk. So we looked at the proportion of business that was going to each one of our locale sites, and then we could bring them on one by one. But we prioritized those by the ones that needed the least amount of features for that particular locale, and then progressively rolled out. And each time we rolled out a new store, so we started with our Spanish store, we were monitoring the data of that store. Was it performing how we expected it to perform? And we're doing it in real time, fixing things in real time. We were using Hotjar at the time to view user sessions. We were using user surveys. We were talking to our customer services team about any feedback they got, talking to our international teams. So all that data was coming in, and it allowed us to very quickly and rapidly start to improve that site, because as you probably expect when you first roll out a site, you probably have a conversion dip before it upticks, and it allowed us a bit of time then for bedding in, look at the metrics and improve things as we were going along. And we found that using Amazon CloudWatch really, really helped, built some really neat dashboards in there, which helped us be fingers on the pulse using unsampled data, really.
My follow-up question around that is data reliability. So something I see a lot in ecom through my conversations is that there's sessions that's captured through Google Analytics. There's sessions captured through your platform. You might have like some sort of analytics platform, like a mixed panel. How do you look at architecting your tech stack to maximize kind of for data reliability so that your marketing team's not pulling sessions from the platform and you're looking at GA or kind of vice versa, and that could potentially inform the wrong decision?
It's a really good question. And I suppose it's something that we're still wrestling with somewhat, because we were used to using Google Analytics as our real source of truth to have a look at the website performance and how to drive that. But with the various changes that happened this year, it's got more and more difficult with implementing cookie consent, for instance, just one change being in that, where now 30% of site traffic is completely anonymous to you. You've got the fact that a lot of the data is sampled in GA4. When you compare year on year GA4 data now with what it was last year, they are totally incomparable, which makes decision making really tricky, because that was your finger on the pulse. What happened this May, thereabouts with the seasons, etc. So that's been really tricky. So from our perspective, I rely more upon the data I'm getting via CloudWatch that's directly connected into all our middleware and our event-driven software. So we really believe in capturing every single event that happens on our website that goes through our middleware. All that is monitored, all that's recorded, and the important things are then put into our dashboards. And then our dashboards, we can create alerts off that. So sometimes we'll have challenges where GA4 is saying one thing with the unsampled data, but then we could prove it with actual factual unsampled data, what our session count is, through factual data, what our average order value was, etc. So we're still learning as a business, and we're constantly trying to evolve our thinking around that.
That's good. And as I hear you talking, and I hear this often with a lot of CTOs, you're speaking in very technical terms. So obviously you have a ton of experience and you think of technology as a competitive advantage. Like, why do you think in e-commerce specifically technology is so important, right? Because if you look at the retail landscape, distribution used to be really, really important back in the day. And as time and technology has evolved, technology and retail has become really important, and especially for e-com businesses. So yeah, I guess my question is, I'm curious, like, why do you think tech is so important to an e-com business?
Well, the simple answer, I suppose, is without tech, you've got no ecom, right? And everything that we do is built on that. But I suppose when you look at it a bit deeper, one of the things I love about working in retail and e-commerce is the fact that it's always pushing. It's always trying to find the next edge. I think it probably comes back to the runner in me, the athlete in me, the competitive nature of me, where you are always wanting to get one up on the competition and see how you can get an edge. So technology can help that, but it can also hinder that. I think technology for technology's sake is something to watch before you know it. If you don't measure as you're adding these things in and understand how they're affecting your KPIs and performance, you can very quickly end up with a lot of site bloat, which is where we were with our old site, where it literally looked like we chucked every single feature we could possibly think of on the site. And before you know it, you don't know which way's up. And whether these things, the compound effect is actually positively improving conversion or not. But I think always thinking about what the next thing could be and looking at new opportunities, new platforms which can improve. And I think obviously technology is just at the center of all of that, isn't it?
And as you go through that, how have you balanced innovation and durability? Being able to really move quickly and iterate and add and remove features, but also stability and durability at the same time.
I'll tell you where we came from. So when I first came to the business, we were only releasing our website, for instance, once a week. And it would be almost a 2-day job to prepare the release, test the release. It'd have to be tested by cross-functional departments and teams, and it would go by in one big bang, right? So you either got it right or you haven't. And there wasn't many alarms or alerts on anything that happened beyond that. So we had to do all that preparation up front, a high amount of effort to get a release out. Whereas now we've changed our technology stack so that we're using Vercel, Next.js and tools like that, where we can roll out features to our heart's content, really. We tend to do multiple releases a day. Do we make mistakes? We do. However, with the way we approach things, I'd always kind of lean on the side of taking a bit of a punt, a bit of a risk. As long as that blast radius is kind of small, I can back out of it quickly and I can very quickly understand whether it's had any adverse consequence. So we use tools such as your tool, Noibu, now, which we adopted going back 2-3 months ago. We're already looking at those dashboards now. So as we do make a release, any errors and issues which are bubbling up, we've got them monitored. They're on a dashboard. We can see the consequences of that. And similarly, we've got Amazon CloudWatch. So very quickly, if anything's gone wrong through any of our funnels, payments, checkout, etc., we pretty much know about it. So it allows us to take a bit more of a risk tolerant approach to that. But we used to definitely never deploy on a Friday. We sometimes late deploy on a Friday, but not a Friday afternoon. So that's kind of how we manage that. But again, you're always balancing it, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. I like what you said about the blast radius. It's move fast, break things, as long as you could minimize the blast radius if you need to revert a change because your systems are telling you something's going on. Having the right infrastructure in place makes a ton of sense. Kind of pivoting a bit here, but what do you think KPIs that CTOs and retail should report on? Or let's maybe actually just be a bit more niche with ecom.
So the KPIs I'm most interested in are the general trading KPIs. I'm really commercially orientated from that perspective. So I look at in the morning, I look at the on-site conversion, I'll look at the checkout funnel conversion, I'll look at revenue year on year and that sort of performance. I'll look at session data. So that's your bread and butter. Beyond that, I might look more at site performance statistics, load times, etc. But we only tend to dive into that if we're seeing maybe any issues manifest and so on. So I think that's kind of where I focus my time on.
It's interesting because we have some clients that actually report on KPIs that are closer to what our CTO would report on, which is like uptime, stability, things like that. But it's interesting to hear what you're saying. The other half is kind of what you're flagging, which is the CTOs of e-com D2C brands actually report on sales because they have technology strategies to drive sales. And it's not like technology for the sake of technology, if that makes sense. So it's cool to hear you say that. What's your role in sales forecasting and how does kind of technology play into that?
In this last period of time when we've been dramatically changing our web platform, we've been voyaging into the unknown. So I mentioned before about the fundamental change around Google Analytics. Not only that, we've completely changed our website. So we are completely relearning the whole landscape around that. And when we were coming into this year's forecasting, we knew we'd be going live with the website at a certain point in time. Guessed it's a bit later than expected, which should be expected in fairness. And I got to try and help my FD guess as best as we can in terms of what that uplift might play into it. Also, bearing in mind what I mentioned before, sometimes you go backwards before you go forward. So what that inertia might be before you try and uplift. And that's mainly from prior experience. We've had to do some forecasting for like a concept of an app. What might that bring to the table? How many sales you think that might bring? And then you've got to guess like how much of that will be new revenue, new acquisition of customers, how much of that will be just cannibalizing what you'd have got before. So it definitely plays in, but what would tend to happen is our FD will come up with a sales forecast and then we would layer on the top of that. And that would also be other members of the board as well, from our buyers through to our operations team, etc. as well.
It's cool to hear. And how do you think the roadmap's going to look like for 2025 relative to AI? And do you think that'll have an impact to your forecast?
I'd like to say yes. I think it could, both positive and negative. It all depends on how fast the adoption curve is around our competition. I don't think you're seeing too much of it just yet, but the bigger brands in our industry, maybe the likes of Nike, etc., you could maybe see how they would start to adopt and use that. It just depends how progressive they are, really, and whether we're going to need to respond to that. We're already doing some of the basics around using AI chatbots, already sort of looking at where we could use our rich product catalog information and editorial content. And is it possible you could create that into more of a conversational search experience for customers? So I think it's very much for us exploratory right now, but I think there is some interesting stuff which, if we hopefully get the bandwidth to sort of have a go at it, we'll probably try and do some pilots and see how we get on with that.
I was at a talk not that long ago that we shared at our customer advisory board, and Brian, who's the CTO at BigCom, was talking a bit about how AI might change traffic flows, meaning people are going to go to ChatGPT or something similar and be like, where should I buy my sneakers? How are you guys thinking about that? And how does that play into the broader commercial strategy as like traffic flows actually might change from a distribution? I actually think they will change over the next 5 to 10 years. I even find myself going to ChatGPT to help plan a trip and say, hey, where's the nicest place for the cheapest price to stay here? So how are you guys thinking about that?
Yeah, so from a consumer's lens, I'm with you in terms of most of the time you'll get a lot more precise answer from ChatGPT than you would get from search. So even like the things like, I use it personally for things like vendor selections and stuff like, what are the key features that you require from a customer data platform in 2024 and what are the different players in that industry? And you're getting all of that data back without it being biased by advertising. So you can see the mindset shift where that could be going. But then whether they're just going to blow that full of ads again and then you're back where you were, I don't know. But certainly the precision is incredible. In researching this podcast, I was asking ChatGPT as well about some of these concepts and how it might affect organic traffic flows and that sort of thing. And it's just incredible the precision you get from that. It's very succinct. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting and quite disruptive, I think. But the good thing is, from our perspective, we generate a lot of our own content. We don't rely on brand content. So a lot of our product imagery, on location shoots, our editorial content, that's like what I call like a primary function in our business. So it's not a secondary thing for us. Oh, we do it when we've not got time. We employ content editors, we employ translators, and we are constantly churning out this keyword-rich content, which customers enjoy reading. And then now we sell technical products. So it's really, really important in that world. So I think the companies or e-commerce companies that genuinely create great, rich content, video, product, advice, etc., will definitely win that, because that looks like the way in which Google certainly is going to use generative AI to send users to those sites with that capability, really.
I appreciate that, John. And as we look to wrap up here, any parting words For anyone listening, really, really appreciated hearing your feedback on this and your thoughts.
For me, it's one of the biggest, scariest things was to go into this re-platform journey we went on. Very well established site. It's been up there for 10 years. It was trading, you'd look at it pretty well. But we knew time was upon us to make a change, and we needed to create something fresh. We needed to create something new. We needed to adopt a new technology to be able to move things forward at a rapid pace. And it's pretty scary going into that. But I think you just go with the phrase JFDI sometimes and commit and see things through. And also through all these projects over a long range, especially technology ones where you've got a lot of integration headaches going on, it can be up and down emotionally, technically, difficulty, but ultimately it's worth persevering in the end. And we're in a great place now. Our content creators, our marketing team have got a site now which they can evolve and change every single day, keep it fresh every single day, with no developers involved, no testing cycles involved. And we as a development team can then focus on giving our customers great features constantly and improving the performance of that site and the performance of the checkout. So, parting words, JFDI.
I love it. Well, thanks again, John. And if anyone wants to connect with you, I'm sure LinkedIn's a great place to find you. But thanks again. Really appreciated the words of wisdom.
Cheers, Kailin. Thank you.
The E-Commerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives is brought to you by Noibu. To find out more about Noibu and how we can help you debug your e-commerce site and rocket your revenue, visit www.noibu.com. That's Noibu.com. And then make sure to search for the E-Commerce Toolbox Expert Perspectives on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found, and click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Noibu, thanks for listening.